Welcome to Everything is Learning, a space for curiosity, growth, and figuring things out as we go. We're glad you're here. Let's get into it.
Hello, we are ecstatic to welcome Tameka Anderson to Everything is Learning today. Tameka is a dynamic speaker and nationally recognized parenting and behavioral specialist, known for high energy and practical strategies that drive real-world results. She is the founder of Parenting Confident Kids, creator of the F.U.N, F.U.N, Finding Unmet Needs framework, and best-selling author of Parenting the Confident Child, and You're It. A former Chicago youth who aged out of foster care, Tameka brings lived experience and professional expertise to help families and educators understand stress, unmet needs, and behavior. Her trauma-informed approach equips audiences with actionable tools to build stronger relationships, calmer environments, and confident children. Tameka has been featured in Forbes, CNNMoney, PopSugar, and now here on Everything is Learning podcast. Wow. We cannot wait to dive in with you. Thank you so much for being with us here today. How are you?
I'm fabulous. Thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Us too.
Same.
Us too.
I told you before we got on, but I am officially a fangirl now. I know that we kind of met through threads, but I going down the fun rabbit hole with you. It's just, first off, it's clever. It's so accessible. Your
Yes.
information is accessible. And I think that that's so important for parents and people who have interactions with children, and even in healing ourselves. We've talked a lot so far this season about part of the reason we've been curious about raising humans is also because a lot of that work is raising ourselves. And I think you bring a lot of story to that particular piece, so we're very excited. So I'll start with our icebreaker. So our icebreaker question for you today is, if you could instantly normalize one thing for all parents, what would it be?
Emotional regulation.
Oh, hell yes.
I was talking
More of
to
that.
a friend of mine earlier today, actually, and I said, we have someone running the country and doing a horrible job, and it all stems back to, I probably bet the parents were not emotionally regulated.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Or that he himself cannot
Well,
emotionally regulate.
it
But where would
starts
he have
with
learned
But
it?
you're right. Yes,
Right, right.
And
absolutely.
so, yeah, because his past, because I went down his rabbit hole too, FYI. But his past is very jaded. So much abuse, and abuse happens when there isn't emotional regulation. So I just believe the world would be a better place if, especially parents, learn how to regulate their nervous system.
Yeah.
I think I something that I really appreciate, which was unsaid, but this is what I heard. And so I am hearing things you're not saying, but I appreciate that you at least did the research to try and better position yourself to empathize, or if we're going to talk smack, at least be educated about it, related to the current administration. And I also appreciate that as much as I disagree with him, it gives me a point to be compassionate where I really find a lot of friction with that feeling.
Yeah. You used the word empathy, and that felt a little strong. Some people, I think empathy is somewhat deserved. I don't think I've ever said that out loud. I don't think I ever really thought about it, but bringing up Trump and humanizing his existence is a hard pill for me to swallow.
It's hard.
As someone who can be marked safe as someone who's never voted for him and would never vote for him.
Yeah.
I just, yeah, emotional regulation, thinking of his parents not being regulated. But the interesting thing that you said, Tameka, right out the gate, coming in hot, is the fact that it's not just about the emotional regulation. That's where abuse starts. And I've never seemed so intuitive, but
That's bringing up a point for me that I'd like to talk about. Tameka, can you talk about how our past doesn't stay in the past and that it
Mm.
shows up in our parenting or in our government? What does that actually look like in real life? And can you tell us about how your upbringing how did your upbringing impact the way you help others?
Oh,
Mm.
oh yes, absolutely. So I always say that our past doesn't stay in the past. It absolutely comes in our parenting. And so,
Mm.
as someone who has what the psychological terminology is a mother wound, I have a mother wound, meaning my
Mhm.
mom was very abusive. She was, had, abandonment issues herself. So, therefore, abandoned me. So, having the mother wound, I didn't realize that I unconsciously passed it down to my daughters. Me
Mm.
being a mother, having the mother daughter dynamic kind of like screwed. I passed that unconsciously down to my daughters. I have two daughters. How I realized this is when I was going through therapy myself. I could not understand. For the life of me, I'm like, these girls got it going on. They don't know what I went through in my life. I didn't even have food to eat. Like, I'm literally doing all of this in therapy. And my therapist is just sitting there listening. And all of a sudden, she asked one question that just took me out of the game. She said, Tameka, how old is your daughter that you're having this issue with? And I'm like, she's 17 and she's getting on my nerve. And I'm just going in. And she was like, okay, at 17, what happened for you? When I tell you, I
Mm.
broke down. And we began to talk. And she helped me process that my younger self was essentially in war with my daughters
Oh.
because
Ooh. Wow.
my inner child was jealous of them. Like, how dare you complain about this? We didn't even have food. We didn't have this. And once I realized that that was what was going on with me, I was ready to really dive into my own mother daughter dynamic and heal my portion of it so that I won't keep passing this down and unintentionally wounding my daughters.
Mm.
And so, because of that, and because of my past and everything that I've been through growing up in foster care, just really not having parents that were there, and even the adults who were raising me not being emotionally regulated, I've learned how to, number one, regulate my nervous system. So when I walk into a room, I can help anyone co regulate, right? And number two, I can relate to those who are either going through it or have been through it. And so because I can do that, I possess this superpower where I see them. And immediately it's kind of sort of like, okay, you see me? All right, cool. And I'm able to have a conversation with anyone. This is why I've worked, oh my God, past almost 30 years now with children. I've had all kinds of behaviors. I I said one summer I had the summer camp where I said ADHD, ODD, all the D's, they bring them to me, right? So, but one parent asked me, she said, uh, how do you do this? And like I told her, I said, I was the child that had the extreme behaviors. But they slapped labels on me. And instead of sitting down to say, oh, this girl is traumatized, at 7 years old, I was running from bullets, someone shooting at my mother and me. Nobody
Wow.
is sitting down saying, oh my God, what did that do to her little brain? They're just saying,
Sure.
oh, she's just ODD. She's just oppositionally defiant. And, all of these things that they're labeling me as when all it was is I was traumatized.
Mhm.
And so, because of that, I have been able to, I say now, let me just put this disclaimer out there. Of course, I didn't want to go through that. Okay. I did not want to go through that. What I'll say is, I'm grateful for my experiences because now I have a superpower in a way where it takes me 5 minutes or less to help parents, professionals, educators, guardians to really understand behaviors and to transform it. So,
I love that so much. I think something that I struggle with, especially having two children who are diagnosed with autism, without feeling culpable, what you were just saying is it was so easy to label without understanding root cause. And I don't know that there's a ton of, like, I don't know that every diagnosis has an immediate root cause that's known now, right? Like, medical science is still transforming, and we're learning more and more as it is. But you, at least for you, if someone had bothered to spend the time trying to get to root cause, that you were able to figure out and not only name what that was, but also like use that as, I don't know, like a key piece of empowerment and leverage so that you can resonate with people. That's really amazing. And I guess, how long did it take you to get there? How long like, when did that happen?
Or when did an adult figure it out and ask the right
Yes, right,
question? 'Cause
exactly.
it's on them. You were 7.
yes.
Right.
So, something amazing happened to me at age 9. You would
Okay.
think that, okay, at age 9, okay, cool. Let's not get too carried away, but something great did happen to me.
Okay.
I was in care and it was me and my brother and my sister, right? They normally keep siblings together. At age 9 was the first time we got separated. The
Mm.
reason being is because there was a court worker. They call them CASAs, which stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate. She asked me one question that no adult had ever asked me before.
Okay.
She said, Tameka, what do you want? That was the first time an adult had actually seen me, I felt. So I'm thinking, life is about to be good. It was not good, right? So the court system, and yeah, that's a whole nother conversation that we could have. But we got split up and I didn't see my siblings until I was an adult, 21 years later.
Wow. Oh my
And
god.
during that time is when I was going through all of this stuff, being labeled, being pushed through the system. I was the only one of my siblings that didn't have anywhere to go because my sister was adopted by her family, and then my brother ended up going back to our mother. I was the
Okay.
only one nobody wanted. And so it was because I've always been this way where I don't take what you say as face value, mostly
Mm.
because adults lied to me all of my life. So
Okay.
instead of them seeing that I was a child who was just not going to just lay down and just take it, I always ask questions. I push back. I would be like, why? Well, why do we have to do that? You couldn't just tell me, oh, go do this, because I'm asking you why. I don't care how
Mm.
many times I was hit. I still ask, well, why'd you hit me then? And so, because I've always been curious, I got to a point where I love to learn. I was super curious. And as I was growing up, I was saying, well, okay, if they had done this with me, it would have been better. If they had
Mm.
just sat with me, I wouldn't have been quote unquote defiant.
Hmm.
I was asking questions because I wanted to know. So that's always been in me, in who I am, wanting to know things. However, the older I got, the more I started piecing things together to say, hmm, I know when I acted like this is what I needed. And so then I started working with children and I started observing their behaviors. And I said, well, let me see if this actually work. And it does, because there's only three really root causes of behaviors. Either they don't feel seen, they don't feel safe, or
Mhm.
they don't feel significant. Those are the only three
Same.
things it could be. And so the rest is history after I
Wow.
solved that case, if you will.
I know. You're like Sherlock Holmes
Right.
meets Melissa McCarthy plays this character called Michelle Darnell in, oh man, The Boss. It's an amazing movie. You're like this reincarnate, coupled with the fact that you're like Muhammad Ali, speaking truths and like being seen and laying down the realities of things, and then but ultimately you're Tameka, you're the best versions of all of them, coupled with healing children from future trauma and the fact that you're breaking the cycle. My goodness. I guess the scene, I'm still really sitting with this. They don't feel seen, they don't feel significant, or they don't feel, what was the last S?
Safe.
Safe.
Mhm.
And for you, it was probably a combination of those things at various points in time. But I'm trying to I'm thinking about how that shows up for my own children, especially when they're dysregulated.
Yeah.
And is it a matter of seen significance or safety? Maybe it's some of all of that. I just,
For
um,
kids, I
yeah,
would say
right.
it's most of the time all of it because they're still learning how to be. But I was smiling and kind of giggling while you were talking about this because Marissa, I feel like Tameka just explained a lot of me. Like Tameka, the
Mm,
things that you've talked about,
yeah. Oh,
it's so my mom will say she went to our pediatrician, she tells this story to everybody that I had to be oppositionally defiant. I had to be. I had to have ODD because I would never listen. But the reality was I could take a punch. Not for my mom. My mom never hit me, but there were other people in my life who did. Um, and I could take a punch. I would sit in a corner. I would question every adult. My curiosity was a threat to adults because adults didn't, right? They think that you're saying you know more than them when really you're just asking them for validation or asking them to help you to get to where you want to get to learn something new or
Mhm.
understand something. And the reality is when you talk about your superpower of knowing people, it's because, and this is the thing that I hope that every child, because you talked about how everybody gives you all the D's, my sister can talk to you about how in my career, I always wanted to help kids who needed it, who needed to feel
yes.
seen, safe, special, like, um, but the fact that you went through this and I can see similarities in the way that I grew up, we received more of people's feelings and projections than anybody else, and that's why we can read people so quickly because we can analyze people so quickly. I
Mm,
so when you're sitting here saying it's a superpower, I'm going to sit here and validate the crap out of that because people think that that comes off as arrogance when really it should make people feel safe, that they can find someone who can actually help them. And I am so glad you're here because people need this, especially now, especially during this administration,
for
especially
sure. Oh,
because
yes.
of the CNN article that just came out about 62 million views on how to really, really, really harm women. People have a lot of unpacking and a lot of trauma to navigate. And I know that you talked about how it comes up in parenting and your platform centers around parents trying to stop dysfunction. So, what does stopping dysfunction actually look like for everyday parenting moments?
There's this saying that trauma runs into the family until someone is willing to face the pain, right? And so I
Uh,
feel like I was that person willing to stop and face it.
Mm,
There's another saying that says it ran into my family until it ran into me. I
mhm.
also feel that way. And so that's what the whole premise of parents trying to stop dysfunction looks like is that, hey, dysfunction ran all through until it got to me, and we're stopping it here, right?
Mhm.
And so the whole premise is to say, parents who are like me, that it ran in your family, and you said, not today,
Mhm.
then this is the space where we unpack things, where we talk about, hey, well, this is how this showed up in my parenting.
Right.
mm,
And this is what I'm doing differently. Not the opposite of, because what I realized is the opposite of somebody yelling at me was not saying anything at all is also not healthy.
Mhm.
So the balance of, hey, they didn't know how to communicate. So I'm going to learn the skills to effectively communicate with my children. And so this is where we're going to do. So that is where PTSD was birthed from.
And just to be clear for our listeners, that's the PTSD she's referring to here is the parents trying to stop dysfunction.
Yes.
With that said, I used to work in residence life, and I sincerely wish I could have had you come to the various institutions that I work for to talk through, because when people who are coming to college for the first time and are stepping into a space with other people who they've never lived with before, or they haven't had to share a room before, like trying to stop the dysfunction. Also trying to stop the manipulation. Like if there's a problem, if you're sensing it, right? If you're feeling it, the friction, boiling it down to just even those simple principles of someone doesn't feel safe, seen, or significant. I think that would have stopped so many roommate conflicts, let alone, and then to equip the kids with that skill so early.
Right.
And the other piece to this is where Elena and I were raised by the same parents on the face of it. We each got different parents, and I'm trying to be cognizant of that for my own children. Like, my older son gets a different me than my younger son, and what that means and what I've learned along the way that I can bring into that. I did not have a similar background in the two of you, where I feel like because I didn't experience those things, I can be easily manipulated. So when Elena talks about how, everything that you're teaching is so relevant, especially today, just going back to our initial talk about emotional regulation and how that can lead into some really triumphant and impactful moments. And when you're not, I think that there's probably a lot of people in this country who don't emotionally regulate well, which is why they're so easily manipulated. And this was something that I had to learn over time. And I'm very grateful to have found people like you who are making it accessible, like we talked about early, and easy to understand. Because just because we say things, it sounds easy. The doing the work, not easy.
At all.
Not easy. And so for someone just starting the journey, how can they begin to identify unhealed parts of themselves without spiraling into guilt or overwhelm? Do you have any suggestions?
Yes, I love that question.
That's a hard question.
It's a hard question. However, I love it. And let me tell you why. So I started trauma therapy, and that was about maybe 12 years ago. When I started, I wish someone had told me what I'm about to share. What I would suggest anyone do is to have at least one person that is going to be their support system. If you're a woman, I call my wellness wing woman.
Yes, with the alliterations. Yes, with the alliterations.
Where this person is going to be there, because there's two parts to what I'm going to say. It's okay to be able to spiral and to be overwhelmed. That's part of the journey. The journey is a journey because you don't know what you'll find and what it will do to you and what you'll do with what you find, right? That's why it's a journey. So because of that, you need someone who is willing to be in the trenches with you.
Right.
We cannot do this work alone. The reason why I say that is because it's hard, right? You won't go as deep as you need to go if you're by yourself, right? So that's the first thing that I would say. Have someone with you. Have someone willing to be in the messy middle. You're a hot mess. You want to vent. You want to cry. You want to, all the things. Have a person with you. And then the second part of that, be willing to unravel. Be willing to be overwhelmed. My therapist, the first one that I had, I was with her for 7 years. And I went to trauma therapy for once a week for 7 years. Can you imagine that? 7
commitment.
years. Once a week I went. And something she taught me, because I had, this hard exterior. I refused to cry because I was just fed up with life. And she taught me how to schedule time to cry. Sounds weird, but she did. And so I called it sitting with sadness. So I allowed myself time, just like you would plan a date or something. I would allow myself a day and a time to sit with sadness, whatever that looks like, falling apart, whatever. And then my wellness wing woman knew when that was. So when the time was up, she was there to check in. Hey, how you feeling? What do you need? Blah, 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 blah. That is why you need somebody, because it is okay to be unraveled. It is okay to be overwhelmed. However, we are here to hold each other. So that's my answer to that.
That's amazing. I
Yeah.
love that you already had that in the bank, because asking for help is so hard. But if you're proactive about it,
Yeah.
when you need the help, you have it. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
We talk a lot about community
Wow.
and how community is even just one other person. And I think the thing that as adults we've found from our listeners, but also from talking to each other, is it's really hard to find a trusted adult as an adult, because there's just not as many opportunities if you don't create them. So again, Marissa, you were talking about like, oh, we talk about it and it seems so easy when we talk about it. But the reality is not everybody has that person, which
Sure.
Tameka, I feel like that's where you come in, right? Is like you can be that person for somebody.
Mhm.
And I think the other thing that makes it a little harder to apply alone is when you feel like somebody doesn't really fully understand, that like they can't come from the place that you're coming from, and that's super hard to find too, when you're trying to navigate through this stuff, especially as an adult. Like if you were not a child who felt safe, you're probably not an adult who felt safe or
Mhm.
feels safe actively. So you have to create that safety. You have to, I get so upset when people, I just had somebody post the other day. I was like, everybody needs a therapist. Everybody does it. It's not about need. It's also about deserves.
Yes.
Everybody deserves somebody that they could go to that's going to listen and not be judgmental
Yeah.
and help you build skills.
Yep.
That and I'm not saying that every therapist is a great therapist, but I am saying that you should absolutely, they work for you. They work for your health. It's just like going to the doctor. Like you have to take care of your mental health,
Yeah.
and people are still working so hard to destigmatize that. And I just feel like there's so many unhealed parts of people. So how do you also come at this if you're an adult? So you were talking about how you were an adult and you were going through this process while you had children who are on the cusp of adulthood.
Mhm.
How do you help them as the adult to unlearn things? And how did you unlearn things at the same time? I know therapy, but when you actually have children under your roof and they're not toddlers, I feel like that would almost be more complicated.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I will say is I'm grateful for me constantly tapping into my creativity,
Okay, yeah.
because I sat my children down as they were getting older, and I had a conversation with them. First of all, they knew my background, where it came from, my lifestyle, all of those things. And then I had another kind of conversation. I said, "Hey, listen, is it okay that we learn some things together? Because there's some things that I'm learning now I didn't learn at your age,
Right.
but it's kind of appropriate for your age."
Right.
I said, "Will you not look at me weird if I have to learn this?" Right. If I have
Right.
to learn this at this big age, and my
Mhm.
kids are cool. They was like, "What,
How
yes."
could they not be?
But I
And so
mean, how awesome that you gave them that opportunity, like that you humbled yourself and said, "Hey, like this is new for me too.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And you
That's
invited
also
them into learning with
yes,
you. I
right?
love
Yeah.
that. I love
Also,
that.
they do sound cool, but
They
they're also related to you, so it's
well.
not by extension, right? Yeah, so, please continue. Like, what was it that you learned? I'm also curious to know.
So something as well, some people call it simple, but something as simple as budgeting,
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Oh, like
yes,
life
right?
skills? Oh, yeah.
life skills, learning how
Mhm.
to what to do with money, learning
Mhm.
Yeah.
how to use it, and then sitting down, letting them know, hey, talking about like my experiences with money. When I was younger, I would get money. The woman I lived with, she would take it. So I couldn't understand why I never kept money. And then it clicked. Oh, I'm not used to handling money. And so as I'm teaching them, I'm like, okay, y'all, we got to learn this together. And so then I also told them, if y'all learn something better than me, we bring you to the team. And so
Right.
that's when we first started what I call our monthly core value meeting.
Oh,
So
cool.
once a month, we all sit down as a family and we have three core values. And so we go through our core values. Each person talks about how they showed up and they invite feedback from everyone else. At the same time, there we also invite, hey, I learned X, Y, and Z this month. Would anyone want to learn this? And so then we go around teaching skills and it's great. We have so much fun doing it. So
Cool.
yeah.
I love that.
Thank you.
What was the newest skill that you taught or learned?
So, oddly enough, I'm still learning it, but chess. My
Oh, way cool!
son
Ooh,
is a chess master.
That's so
that's
So, yeah,
awesome.
so
chess is the
cool.
newest skill.
That's
Way
really cool.
awesome. Yeah. The
I
Queen's Gambit, if you've have you seen that show? Yeah,
Yeah,
right?
That was
that's
Like,
really
why I
good.
wanted to do it. I'm like, "Oh, I wanna be like her when I grow up."
so cool. I know.
I
I
love
know,
that.
right? Yeah. So, as a parent to two children that are learning how to develop coping skills and
Mm.
regulate themselves as well as me remaining regulated, can you tell me, like, what does it look like for you, or what could you recommend when a child's having a tough moment? What does a fun coach response look like compared to a traditional reaction?
So, tough moments require what I call tough love, and it's not the tough love that people think, "Oh, you just beat them." I don't know why people just wanna hit kids. However, I digress. So, I always say the fun coach method is surrounded by what I said, the 3 areas: safe, seen, significant. Anytime a child or anybody for that matter, but we're talking about children, are having a tough moment or not regulated, it's a lot of not feeling safe. That's the top priority, safety.
Mhm.
There's something that has happened where they do not feel safe. And we as humans, our body's response is wired to keep us safe.
Right.
Mhm.
So if we do not learn how to cultivate safety, we will always be in survival mode. Oh, I don't know if this is a threat. Is it a threat? And that is not how we're supposed to, that's not how we're wired. We cannot be in survival mode
Mhm.
100% of the time and be emotionally regulated. So when
Mhm.
dysregulation happens, it is always the first thing I say is, what is going on?
Mhm.
Usually, if a child is screaming, that means they need to be heard.
Mhm.
So what I would do, my first thing is to say, and I keep my voice at the same level. I remember one of the children that I was working with, he would scream and I would say just like this, I cannot hear you. If I cannot hear you, I cannot help you. And I would say it just like this.
Mm.
They're nosy. They want to know, what are you saying? So
Mhm.
he eventually stopped screaming and say, what? And then I say it again, same tone. I want to help you. I cannot help you if I cannot hear you. Can you tell me why you're screaming? And so I get curious. I ask questions. I don't say stop crying. I don't say stop
Mhm.
screaming. I tell them what I need in order to help them. Because remember, when they're dysregulated, they don't feel safe. When
Yeah,
you're not
they're in
feeling
survival
safe,
mode.
the first thing you're going to respond to is somebody saying, I want to help you. So don't say, don't scream. Don't say, calm down. Don't say, don't cry. Say, I'm trying to help you.
Right.
This is what I need in order to help you. And so that's usually what I do.
I love that because you're almost giving them, you talked about how you're able to co-regulate, but by trying, what I think a lot of people don't understand, and it took me a long time to understand this too, is if you tell someone to not do something, you're escalating them because you're trying to take their autonomy.
Yes.
And if you
Ooh,
try to
yeah.
take their autonomy away, they're going to get more dysregulated. And when you talked about survival mode, when you're in survival mode, your senses are unable to be regulated as well. So if you gave the example of someone screaming, if they're screaming, they're not going to be able to hear you. And you're using curiosity as a like welcome home to yourself tool. Like, hey, let's come back to yourself. Let's come back to your body. I'm not a threat. So you're doing like 10 different things at the same time by using curiosity. And that is so masterful for children. But next time you see a dysregulated adult using curiosity, I guarantee you will make someone stop in their tracks. Like, don't get in their face and keep yelling. Just be like, I can't hear you. I want to understand. And it's like, oh wait, another adult wants to understand me. Like, speaking of the president, can you imagine somebody going in and being like, hey, how are you feeling today? Or, hey, like, we're getting off track. Like, can you tell me something that you want me to hear? I don't even think you'd be able to do that. But I'm just saying, like,
I want to help you.
Yeah.
help me help you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But I really think that is such an untapped tool. And one of the reasons why this podcast was created was because of curiosity.
For
It
sure.
actually started because we found that there were so many things missing about like what is learning, why do people not care to learn anymore, why are people not learning from each other, why do people not understand that your health is body, mind, soul, mental health, like all these other things. And it really stemmed from curiosity, like what's missing. So you were talking about teaching financial skills. There are so many skills that we are not teaching our kids in schools. And one of them is absolutely emotional regulation. And it is so hard. Like I've been looking for preschools and I found one. I went to see 17 different preschools, by the way, because I'm a nut. And being in education, you know so much about the inner workings.
Yeah.
And at that age, I want my kids to be able to learn emotional regulation in a public place and at home.
Yeah.
And I found one school that focused on it in our area. One. Like I walked into a couple of preschools and they were doing circle time. First off, not appropriate. People can talk all they want about it being age appropriate. It's not. Having kids sit in a circle and then punishing them and having them go sit in a chair and being ostracized, I
Nope.
walked out.
Yep.
2 of the tours, I walked right out. My husband was like, what's the matter? I was like, no, I don't even want to have a conversation with these people. This is not okay to treat a child like that. At one of them, I sat down with the kid and I was like, you okay? Like, is everything all right? And he was upset. He was angry because he wasn't able to sit with the rest of the class. And I found it was a majority boys because it's not developmentally appropriate for them to sit there. But they do need to learn how to regulate. So it's just like,
Right.
you have to give people, this is the other thing too, that to stem off of that. I think we have to be giving people opportunities to practice emotional regulation. Like we have to put people in positions where they can do that, like, and experience different people and experience different places and experience different cultures. And learning really is everything. And I wonder, like, how do you help parents shift from survival mode? Because parents are like kind of the front line for For people who have children, parents are the front line. How do they shift from survival mode, especially young parents like us, into like being present and intentional in raising their humans?
Oh, such another great question, too. So, I always say that you have to allow for more white space in your day.
Mm.
A lot of people think that self-care is going to get your nails done, going to the spa. I don't know about you, but going to get my nails done is not relaxing to me.
Mm-mm.
But self-care, like taking care of yourself, my definition for self-care is I take care of me so that I don't cause unintentional harm to others around me, right?
Mm.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
so what happens is we have to allow more white space in our day, meaning time for where there's not a lot of stuff going on, silence, solitude, drink some tea, go walk in nature. But having more time, that's the reason why I'm able to help people co regulate, is
Mm-hmm.
because I spend every minute of my free time regulating my nervous system, up to and including not spending time with people who don't like me.
Mm.
Because what people don't
Say it
realize,
louder for the people in the back.
what people don't realize is that I was self-sabotaging because I had people around me who didn't want to see me win anyway. So I'm
Mm.
spending time with them. They don't like me. They don't want to see me win. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm borrowing their belief to not
Mm.
believe in myself. And a lot of that dysregulates our nervous system too, because the body, the body
Keep
keeps
score.
score for
Yep.
sure. And so learning how to not spend time with people who don't like you, put more white space in your day, and just really spending more time practicing being centered, being calming your nervous system, not watching traumatic shows, don't watch the news, all
Don't
of
doom
these things
scroll.
helping
Yeah.
Yeah.
to really regulate yourself. You will find if you stop, don't follow gossip blogs. Like I had to unfollow gossip blogs. I don't even follow them anymore.
Mm.
But all of those things that I did helped catapult me out of survival mode till I look around and have all of this time to just be creative. So
Mhm.
that's what I would say. I would say start looking at your day. Ask yourself, how do I feel every time you with someone? I don't care if you're related to them, especially if you're related to them, as I say. But ask yourself how you feel once you're, or, from being around them. Do you need time to decompress after being around them?
Mm.
That's a huge sign that you need to limit time around that particular person because they're keeping you trapped in survival mode. And once
So
you
good.
start doing this, you will create an environment and model this where your children will learn how to regulate. And because a lot of people say, oh, well, what if it's the kids? Well, once you start modeling it, once you get out of survival mode, your children will not be in survival mode and it's not going to be as loud. Like unless you're outside or you're playing and you're doing some stuff, then yeah.
Where it's
Sure.
But
appropriate. Sure.
yeah, but it will help out for sure. Just really monitoring what you have going on.
s- love everything you said. I'm just curious about potentially the step before that, which is, let's say you're doing what you can to do better for yourself so that you do better for the humans that you're raising, but you make a mistake
Mhm.
and you do become emotionally dysregulated. You do trauma, you do hurt. What do you do to repair? Like, we're going to make mistakes along the way. It's learning. I wish it was as easy as just saying it and then doing it, but that's not the case. And it is going to take time. And I really love what you had said earlier about you carry a mother wound with you and that you inadvertently carried that onto your daughters. So
Mhm.
I'm curious, like, it was totally unintentional. I don't know if you want to specifically talk about that, but I'm curious as a parent who does want to do better but who probably has some caused some unintentional harm. How do I repair?
Repair. I love it. That's my second favorite thing to talk about. Okay. So we were not taught how to repair.
Mm-mm.
Matter of fact,
Correct.
the adults around me never apologized to me. However, I digress again. So for me, I have found that there are 8 steps to a proper repair, which is why most people don't do it.
Mm.
Okay. The first step is pause and regulate yourself. If you're activated, you cannot, because you're right here and you're activated. You cannot
Mm-hmm.
say something simple as, give me a minute to calm down. Take 10, 20, 30 minutes, no more than 30 minutes. If it takes more than 30 minutes for you to regulate yourself, again, let's go back to daily self-care practices, okay?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Because it should not be a long period of time, okay? Take 30 minutes. Let's say you took 30 minutes. Regulate yourself. Now, you're calm now. That's step 1. Step 2, name what happened. Now, without excuses. For example, I'm going to
Mm.
give you a real example here. I had to repair with my oldest daughter because I was nagging her. I said, "Oh my God, make sure you do this." She's in the kitchen trying to cook, and I'm nagging her about cleaning up. So I named the harm. I said, "I nagged you about cleaning up the kitchen before you had an opportunity to even do it." So that's
Mm.
the second step, right? So then the third step is acknowledge the impact. So then I said, I can imagine that probably was overwhelming and frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Say, I've named the impact. The next step, right? After I've named the impact, take ownership. So
Mm-hmm.
I said, that is my responsibility, right? So the next step after taking ownership, share the why. Now, not justifying it, share the why. So I said, I get anxious when I see a mess, right? Now, I didn't say that's why I did. No, I get anxious when I see a mess, right? So now I just shared the why.
The why is not defense, though. That's
Right.
your point. Right.
It's not defense. I'm just telling them why I
Mm-hmm.
did it. Okay. So then the next step is state what you'll do differently. So then after I said, I get anxious when I see a mess, I immediately said, next time I feel myself getting anxious, I will pause, regulate myself instead of nagging. So I
Yep.
named what I'm going to do differently, right? And then the next step is inviting them in. So then I'll ask the question after that. I'll say, how does that feel for you? Is there anything you need from me in this moment?
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then 10 times out of 10, they're going to tell me, I need you to, like you said, move around instead of nagging.
I
So
love
then,
that.
okay, great. Got you. And then the final step is to just reconnect. I
Right.
love you. I love our relationship. I want us to do better.
Mm-hmm.
And you have my permission to call me out when I'm not doing this. And that's
Oh,
it.
Yeah.
that's wonderful. Wow.
You must have been reading my Canva because the Canva that I am posting later today is about the quote from Repair. Because the last question that we're going to ask, which I'll ask it right now, is we believe raising humans is one of the most powerful learning spaces. What lesson do you hope we start teaching more consciously and collectively around the world to make permanent and positive change? And my answer in our first episode of this season was repair. And the steps for repair, I had less, but were the exact same elements, just worded differently. And I still firmly believe that because you talk about emotional regulation, but part of emotional regulation to me is being able to repair, and that is not taught anywhere. Nowhere. Not even in church.
Yep.
Not even in church. Like,
Yep.
it is taught nowhere. And that is invaluable, Tameka, what you just did. So we will make sure to repost that when we post this too. But what do you believe we need to do differently for raising humans?
like I said, teaching emotional regulation.
Yeah.
Emotional regulation will literally save the world.
I
It
believe that.
will.
Yeah.
Not only if I could posit this because it's come up a couple different times in a few of our episodes. It's not even so you're saying emotional regulation is important. Before I project my answer, why, Tameka, to you is emotional regulation important? What does it get you?
So, as you talk about repair, right? Without emotional regulation, you won't know how to repair, and rupture without repair causes trauma. That's why we got so much trauma going on. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. It
Thank you, thank you,
stops
thank you.
trauma in its tracks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you so much. So it has been so wonderful having you. Can you tell us where our listeners can find you so that they can learn even more?
Absolutely. Everywhere on the web at Fun Coach Tameka.
Wonderful.
Especially YouTube. Hit up the
Yes.
YouTube and the threads. I follow Tameka every day now on threads. We have like, I didn't tell you, but we have threads dates. That's part of my my time. I need to be good in my life so I can regulate. But thank you so much for coming on. We loved having you. We're definitely having you back again, and we'll make sure that everybody can connect with you. And we
Yay,
hope you have
thanks
a
for
wonderful
having
day.
me.
Yeah. Okay, tune in next time for more on raising humans. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks for spending your time with us at Everything is Learning. Keep being curious, keep learning, and we look forward to catching you again next time.